Hello viewers, welcome to the Expert Lecture series as part of World Space Week 2020 being organized by Satish Dhawan Space Center SHAR, Sriharikota. Today's expert lecture will be delivered by Mr. R. Senthil Kumar, who is the Deputy Director of Management System Area of Satish Dhawan Space Center SHAR. Mr. Senthil Kumar has completed his Bachelor of Engineering in Mechanical Stream from Madras University in the year 1985. Later, he has completed his postgraduate diploma in Operation Research and Finance in the year 1999. He has joined the then SHAR Center as Engineer SC. Initially, his assignment was realization of pneumatic and safety systems at the first launch pad of SHAR. Later, he was assigned the task of realization of launch pad safety systems of second launch pad. He was the man of launch pad safety systems, taking care of safety systems of launch complexes as well as solid motor preparation facilities. He has served various positions at Satish Dhawan Space Center SHAR. He was the General Manager for Range Safety Systems from 2014. From 2017, he was the Chief General Manager of Solid Motor Preparation and Environment Test Facilities of SHAR, responsible for ground qualification of solid rocket motors for use in launch vehicles. Later, he served as Deputy Director of System Reliability in ensuring quality in all the operations of SHAR. Presently, he is the Deputy Director of Management System Area. To his credit, he has received Team Excellency Award during the year 2016 for Acoustic Suppression System of SLP and in the year 2017 for ground static testing of high energy motors for human space flight. He is also the authorized signatory for recertification of pressure vessels and high pressure gas cylinders handled in SDSC SHAR for the statutory government organization of Petroleum Explosive Safety Organization called PESO. He is a safety trainer and has given various safety training programs to various categories of peoples of ISRO centers. He is an eminent person in the field of process safety and projects involving solid motor production and testing, liquid cryogenic propellant handling systems to all launch vehicles of ISRO. Now invite Mr. R. Senthil Kumar to deliver his lecture as part of World Space Week 2020.
Good evening friends, and already October 4th to 10th is the World Space Week being celebrated worldwide. Almost 120 plus countries are celebrating this event worldwide, and many of the countries who have got directly involved with space and who have got interest and going to enter into the space field, they all are participating. And other than the government agencies, colleges and educational institutions, schools, they also are equally participating in this. In fact, the very purpose of this event is to reach those common walk of people living everywhere in the world, and specifically the school children who can become the world leaders tomorrow. And the World Space Week theme, every year it is different themes, and we have wide varying themes, starting from moon to the mankind reaching out to the moon and outer space. Different topics are there every year, so that it kindles that interest among the young minds as well as the others who can inculcate this interest in their children. So with this idea, the World Space Week started, and the starting day of the week, October 4th, happened to be that of the first satellite being put in the orbit, the Sputnik by Russians, the old USSR. And followed by October 10th is the day when Yuri Gagarin, he has gone into space, and that also is being remembered. Both remembrance, United Nations started remembering their immense contribution. One as a nation, USSR, putting a first artificial satellite. You know, the natural satellite for Earth is that of the moon. We have only one natural satellite. unlike other planets which have multiple satellites. And the artificial satellite, even it can be a stone, it can be anything which orbits around the earth and don't fall down. They are called as artificial satellites, and the first satellite, such artificial satellite, has been put by the USSR. So this is the starting point of this celebration in UN, and the UN later on recognized the importance of the space not getting into a place of immense specific interest to the countries. Each country will have its own interest in putting up their own space satellites and space colonies and other things. So we have this type of an organized method by which these things are structured. That is the United Nations body. They had started restructuring this space policy, how space has to be utilized by all the countries, and that's how it started. Slowly it grew up right from 1940s, and today we are there in 2020 with a full-fledged, you can say, multiple satellites orbiting the Earth in various orbits. Low Earth orbit they call, somewhere between 300 and 500 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and to the geostationary satellites which go even up to 36,000 kilometers permanently orbiting in a circular orbit there. So that the geostationary satellite always looks down on the Earth at the same point for 24 hours, day or night. They are always looking down at the same place, so that it is very useful for communication and other things. And we have like cartography, where you want to map the area and you want to know, scan the total surface of the Earth. You require orbits which go from pole to pole, from north pole to south pole, north to south they rotate, and those satellites will cover as the Earth rotates from east to west, and this satellite orbiting from north to south, you will get a variety of pictures of the total surface of the Earth. So our interest in such satellites is that they are cameras are switched on and recordings are done and again switched off for the interested area only. You don't have to keep on scanning 3/4 of the Earth which is covered by water, no use in that, except if there is a navigation, if any ship is requiring navigational aid. Other than that, our main interest will be in the land mass, which is hardly 1/4. So that's why always the intricacies of a satellite. Satellite is nothing but I told earlier, a stone also can be a satellite. Now in modern phrase, it becomes a cube, or it becomes a rectangular body which consists of various instruments, and instruments ranging from sensors to cameras to whatever it is, telecommunication, transponders. They all form the part of the satellite, and it requires its own power, because once in space it has to self-sustain. So for years together, and that determines the life of the satellite also, and that life comes mainly because of the power needs. The power it has to generate by own and feed all the instruments which is inside the satellite. That is all being given by the solar panel, and the solar panel converts the solar energy into electrical energy, which can be stored in the form of energy stored in the batteries, and that battery is powering the instruments around the year. And you require very different systems, like thermal system, which always keeps the inside surface of the satellite always warm and compatible to the instruments functioning, because in space you see always the temperature, average temperature will be in the minus 190 and all degrees centigrade, and that type of minus temperatures no instrument will work. And to keep the instruments working inside the satellite, we require to keep them in a conducive atmosphere, and that conducive temperature and atmosphere is being done in the form of a natural heating and cooling with some chemicals, liquid chemicals like liquid sodium they use in conduit pipes, which always gets evaporated, and in that process they picks up the heat from inside the satellite also, and again reconverts itself into the solid medium again and it flows back into the same form. So like refrigerator, it works in space and maintains the temperature inside the satellite. So these are the common features of the object which revolves around the earth called a satellite. And the end users of the satellites, now we have seen, it is used for telecommunication, it is used for mapping, it is used for knowing where a missing fishing vessel is there in the midst of the sea, or where natural minerals can be tapped, or where the minerals are available in faraway places like polar region and mid-sea, in deep inside sea, what type of minerals are available. They can be sensed by these satellites. And you know, in future, water is going to be the major precious thing than the golden diamond, what we normally think is precious. So after some time, water is going to be the precious thing in the world, and where water is available, who controls the water, he will be the controlling person in this total world. That also where the such water bodies are available. Above ground you can physically see, underground you may not be able to see. You require advanced technologies like that of remote sensing. So they sense and find out where such water bodies are available below the earth. And also like other minerals like iron ores which are, and coal, which is still a conventional way of getting energy, the raw material. So such raw material where they are available also is sensed by these satellites, and we get that information. And the croppage, now you put a crop and you have to know what is a likely yield from the crop per year. So that determines the economic power of a nation, and that also is now done statistically by the satellites imagery being analyzed, and we can know how many acres of land is ready for cultivation and how many acres of land can be added to this cultivable land in future by slowly adopting some modern techniques. So that way also we can make a sizable contribution to the economy of a nation through the satellites. And of course variety of other things like the border disputes, they can be clearly brought out by way of satellite images. And you know that many times encroachments which occur in modern world, every inch of land is very important for an individual as well as a group of individuals, or as well as a country as a whole. All those encroachment earlier before the satellite era, they all were settled by way of physical proof available in the form of survey maps. Now those survey maps are replaced by the current satellite imagery. You can compare what is today is a satellite imagery with that of yesterday's, and you know between the yesterday's image and today's image, if you overlap with one another, we know where are all the encroachments which has occurred. And if you now take 1 year back and today's image, you can know in a year how much encroachment has occurred into a reserve forest, let us say. That way also this will be really useful, and these are the minor glimpses of the uses of satellites. Satellites have multiple uses, and nowadays you know, you would have heard that micro satellites are there, and miniaturized electronics have come earlier. You yourself will be knowing that television sets were as big as you can say a table, as big as a table, and such bigger equipment, slowly it got shrunk into a thin foldable monitors have come. Similar way in electronics, as the improvements occurred, miniaturization started. We now use cell phone, mobile phones, where it is available is not distinguishable nowadays, even from different strata of people, from lower strata of person to the highest person. The mobile phone becomes an inevitable must which should be there with a person, and such miniaturization also is creeping into satellites. That's why the satellites nowadays terms have come like micro, nano satellites, which are such miniaturized condition as just 1 square inch or cubic inch of a body which can float in the passively without much power, which can rotate around the earth and gather specific data, and they can transmit to the earth. So that's how even nowadays concept of putting multiple nano satellites to replace a bigger single satellite has come up. And of course, for R&D purpose, research and development, there are international cooperation, under international cooperation, labs are there, like starting with Skylab in the earlier times. Now we have the International Space Station, which are all orbiting 250 to 300 kilometers above the earth. And that is sufficient for a group of people, not less than 10 people at any time. They are living there in the space environment, and sometimes they live for more than a year also. World records have been set by a human being in not putting foot in the soil and being in air continuously. And such people, they carry out many of the important scientific experiments in vacuum condition in space. So what we are growing here in earth is totally different from what we can grow in space. A lot of advantages are there in developing certain technologies which is not dependent on the gravity which pulls the earth here, which pulls any object when it is in the earth. So such things are being developed in space, and they found a variety of improvements in such. Ultimately, the total concept of people putting a flag, like earlier in polar region, North Pole and South Pole, every country has put on set up on polar station their own country's name, and they carried out experiments there. And that is to only claim later a portion of the South Pole, which is in the continent, one of the continent, Antarctica, not exploited of any mineral which it is containing. So it is containing rich minerals which is untapped so far. And so far, because it is untapped, because it is climate is not conducive for such excavation or minerals getting taken out. So now in future, now since all these countries are having a play, including India, we can claim a portion of that continent's mineral rich when technologies are fully developed, and we will be able to take out such minerals from such areas. Similar way in space, one target is moon, where helium specifically, they are there, particular helium which can be very useful for nuclear fusion. They are available in moon, which can be tapped, and whomever taps it, they can have a very bright future in the form of a miniaturized power plant as small as that of a tabletop instrument, portable instrument, which can power a small colony or a small township. So that is a main aim with which everybody is looking at moon as a future settlement area in case there is a problem which makes our earth uninhabitable. We are already seeing in past 6 months one such hint on what a small biological microorganism can cause havoc to the everyday normal life what we are living through. And if any such future problems arise where we are made uninhabitable in earth, we have to look for alternate places to go and settle. And such settlement, nearest body being moon, everybody is looking for one alternate settlement, prospective settlement there. And as Antarctica is being now housed with so many R&D stations from all other countries in the world, same way It slowly started with a few nations, around 7 nations slowly started really putting satellites, and in that 4 nations started going to the moon. We also were one of the country. India has gone into the moon by sending our own Chandrayaan there, and we had made certain useful discoveries on availability of water and all in the polar region, which is essential for any future settlement to settle in the moon. They had done that already, and we also have put up our own, you can say, note for our participation in such activities which can happen in moon later. So that is the one, and now coming to the common man's interest, these are the few ideas where space can be utilized. Ultimately, whatever we do, research and development, it should reach the common man. That is the idea. And when a probe or satellite or a vehicle is sent to the moon, which is 3,85,000 kilometers away from here, you can imagine how a car is being driven in a city with heavy traffic, and now automated cars have come. Without anybody, cars can run, and such cars, how they are maneuvered with a lot of amount of technology being put in for maneuvering such cars in remotely operated cars in cities. Similar way, now we are talking about controlling an object which is flying not less than 10 kilometer per second velocity, and that has to be controlled remotely from a distance of not less than 3,85,000 kilometers. Even the signal what is transmitted from here to control a small movement or small change from the earlier position, it takes time, its own time, at the speed of sound or light at which it is traveling to reach that satellite, and that correction has to occur, and after the correction has occurred in that object, whether it has to go to left or right, or it has to slow down or go up, that information we will get with some time delay again, same time it has to take to reach our earth back to our system. So with this type of, you can imagine that criticality in maneuvering an object which is 3,85,000 kilometers away from the control center from where people are controlling that object. So that is the advanced technologies involved in precisely controlling such equipment at faraway places, which our people have tried, and they have really mastered, I can say. And slowly these missions will go further and further to distant space objects, and we will have a variety of advantages coming out of that. All we are doing for whom? It is for the younger generation who are going to take over from all of us in future, and who are going to really need that extra place to get themselves as a colonized if the earth is made uninhabitable. So it is for the future what we are trying to do right now, and after some time our ISRO's policy with our chairmanship, Dr. Sivan's chairmanship, we will be able to achieve whatever challenges put forth to us, and we will ensure that these challenges are met for the next generation or generations to come later. This is a brief about the activities which is going on in ISRO in general, and the specifics, in Launchpad we have in Satish Dhawan Space Center, we are receiving the satellites from other centers, we are assembling, integrating the launch vehicle itself, we are producing the biggest solid motor here, which can compete very well with that of NASA and ESA, what they are already producing, and we are no less to them in producing such larger solid motors. And we have a complex liquid engines which is having hundreds of components which have to operate in predetermined unison to ensure that we are getting the performance from the engine as we are getting the engine of a car. Same way, where there is a possibility that it can be stopped, it can be corrected, and we can go ahead, not in the space. So we require all these hundreds of components to work in unison in case of this liquid propellant engines. Similar way, the propellant what we are using, it's basically like a petrol and oxygen in ground. We require one oxidizer which carries oxygen, and we require a fuel which can burn in presence of that oxygen. Same way, two fuel, one fuel and one oxidizer are there. So it can be in different forms. If it is in ground, if it is available in liquid form, it is called the earth storable propellant. In ground, in normal atmosphere, if it is available in different form, it is called elsewhere. So similar way, cryogenic propellants are there which can exist in liquid form only when they are processed and stored at a certain temperature. If you take hydrogen at 20 Kelvin, that is minus 253 degrees centigrade, only it can remain as a liquid. If anything warmer than that temperature, it will start getting converted into gas. So if you want more amount of fuel to be stored in a lesser volume, you require to liquefy them and keep it. That's why cryogenic propellants are used, liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen also. If not that stringent, it is also a cryogenic fluid. So both are stored, and the main advantage in that cryogenic propellant oxygen and hydrogen combination is both when they get ignited and the output is nothing but steam, as we are seeing in a pressure cooker in our house. So nothing harm if you inhale that steam. A similar way, it is not harmful to the environment. So that is a major advantage of cryogenic propellant. Cryogenic engines are there. That is also a combination of all these things. Solid propellant where solid chemicals are there, and liquid propellants where propellants in liquid form are stored, and cryogenic propellants where propellants which are in liquid but at a lower temperature, they are also stored and handled. All these things are together make a full rocket of different stages, and they all together they are getting assembled at Sriharikota, and after that the famous countdown, they will say always like unlike others counting up, we count down to 0, so that 0 becomes the lift off time. So we check a elaborate checklist is being done, and for hours together, sometimes it goes in beyond 24 hours. The countdown ensures that all parts of the rocket, their control system and the engine and the environmental control elements, all are checked and found all right, and T0 comes and liftoff command is given. Subsequently, the rocket is lifting off from Sriharikota Island. So once it is airborne, it is getting controlled by various onboard computers, as well as their movement is being monitored via radars to check that it is going in predetermined path, and if it is deviating from its predetermined path, we don't want that to happen, and if it falls in a populated area, there will be a catastrophe with the loss of property as well as loss of life sometimes. So because of that, a range safety officer is there who monitors that always right from the takeoff time till at least it goes beyond till satellite is injected. Till that time he monitors whether the rocket is carrying the satellite is moving in its predetermined path with its safety band on both sides, left and right side, and whenever the safety band is crossed the launch vehicle, we have to take a decision to even sometimes destroy the launch vehicle to save the population living below that. So that is one of the activity which is being carried out at Sriharikota. In addition to the radars which help in that safety officer to know its predetermined path, Then we have telemetry stations which acquire the instrument data from the launch vehicle, which can tell each component of the engine is working to its specifications, that correct it, whether it is going in correct speed, velocity, acceleration, and sometimes shock load, whether it is okay or it is going to harm the satellite, which is nothing but a complex instrument box. The instrument box has to be carried as careful as possible, and we have to leave it in space so that it is outside the clutches of gravity, so that it is clear. Without gravity it performs and always stays there in the top, and minor thrusters are there in the satellite which controls it not to deviate from its determined path. This is the activity what is going on in SHAR, and for ensuring that a safe launch is occurring, we have various safety systems in the launch pad, and always we look at the environmental conditions, whether any propellant vapor is there present, by way of sensing the ground pollution levels prior to the propellant filling itself, and during propellant filling if any out of safety situation comes where it calls for some stoppage of that activity and correcting it. So for those things, a lot of safety systems are provided in form of instruments which monitors the air pollution, and also the correct specification with which the propellants are loaded, they are also being monitored. And the safety system also is comprising of various firefighting media, like universal media for firefighting is water. We have to store water and pump the water to the required place at the right velocity. We have to and right quantity, it has to be delivered at that place, be it in the propellant storage area where we require to protect the rest of the propellants from any other problem or any fire when it is occurring, or in the form of a gases like what you are seeing in general area for like fire extinguishers, which is converting a liquid which is stored inside into a gas, or simply a carbon dioxide gas itself is kept in higher pressure, so it is released at the required pressure so that it puts out the fire. So that way the gaseous medium also can be a firefighting media to control the fire. Those systems are also kept, and main thing is it has to be operated minimum no person should be nearer to the launch pad, the launch vehicle where it is there, and the nearby facilities are nothing but the launch pad, and from the launch pad the control center itself, for safety reasons they are kept far away, kilometers away, and all these safety systems have to be operated remotely from a faraway place, so that at any instant of time if it is demanded, we have to immediately put on the firefighting media into the troubled area. And for looking at all these things, we require a lot of CCTV monitors to see the condition of the launch vehicle at each microsecond level. So they always are getting monitored through this control center again, where all these pictures are coming and they are monitored. This way the overall activity, and other thing is, main thing I told, that world's largest one of the world's largest solid motors are produced here in SHAR. For that lot of liquid solid propellants are there, and the raw materials get variety of raw materials are there which comprise the solid propellant, and those tens of raw materials, when they are mixed in correct proportion, they become the slurry with which the solid motor casing is filled and cast. So such activity is also being carried out in SHAR, and for such activities again safety systems have to be put in place, and they are being run round the year. So round the clock, round the year, such safety systems have to perform to its required need, and those safety systems have to be in place. Otherwise, it is a hazardous area where these activities are going on, and we have to make that hazardous area as safe as possible for persons to work, and that is a motto with which the safety systems are kept in Sriharikota. These are the minor things what I had told you in the last few minutes on the need of a satellite, and what is a natural satellite, what is an artificial satellite, and the purpose and use of the satellites, and also why we have to put satellites in orbit. It is exactly like putting a place in Antarctica for tapping the mineral at a later date when correct technologies are developed. Same way, we wanted to put these satellite systems as well as moon missions and outer space missions. It has to be carried out indigenously by us, so that we can claim a part of that benefits for our future generation at a later date when technologies are conducive and developed fully for meeting those challenges. That is one part, and we have next come to what is being carried out at Sriharikota. What are the major activities being carried out here, where from satellites are coming, from satellite production centers they are coming here, and like that complex liquid engines and cryogenic engines, they are also coming over here. They all get checked and then assembled and again checked as a whole with its own instrumentation, ground instrumentation and ground support equipment here in Sriharikota. And what is a countdown? Countdown starts from even beyond 24 hours it starts, and it slowly comes down like we play in the in our childhood days only we count up. Here it is a countdown. We come to check all the equipments and other things, come to 0, and 0 becomes the takeoff for the takeoff signal for the launch vehicle itself. And after it takes off, what safety we have to take care, that also is part of the range safety officer's work. And to assist him, we require radars, we require visual observation, all those things are done. And how we define the safe path, intended safe path for the launch vehicle till it is releasing the satellite, till the time there is a bandwidth, both safety bandwidth, and whenever this intended path is deviating and going for variety of reasons, if it is going beyond its safe limits, we should have a provision for controlling or destroying, as a worst case scenario, the launch vehicle itself to save the population which are living in the ground below that area. So to that effect, all the systems are put in place. And for assembling the rocket in launch pad, what are all the safety systems required, and what for producing the larger solid propellant motors, what are the safety systems required at Sriharikota. I just touched all these points in my talk, and thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.